That costs 2 shells. The History of Money. Written by Nancy Lowen. Illustrated by Brian Jensen. After supper, Scott opened his backpack. He looked at a flyer about the after-school program at the public library. The program was called That Costs 2 Shells. The History of Money. "Can I go to this?" Scott asked his mom. "Sure," she said. "That looks like fun." The next afternoon, Scott headed to the library. There were shells, stones, metal tools, animal hides, a basket of wheat, some old dried leaves, and a necklace made out of beads. Scott was confused. What was all this stuff? "Don't worry, you came to the right place," a woman said. "My name is Mrs. Gates, and this is Mr. Willer. We're going to talk to you today about the history of money." "Believe it or not, all of these objects were once used as money," said Mr. Willer. "Money is something that is used by a community of people as a type of exchange." "The history of money starts with trading," Mr. Willer said. "Imagine if I traded a pumpkin for an axe from my neighbor. People used to trade food, animal skins, and tools for things they needed. As they became more skillful at growing crops and raising animals, direct trading didn't work so well anymore. Can anyone think why that might be?" he asked. "What if someone didn't need what the other person was trading?" Scott asked. "Exactly," said Mr. Willer. "In prehistoric times, people didn't need money. They hunted and gathered what they needed to survive. People soon started to think in a more symbolic way," Mr. Willer explained. "They gave a value to things like animals and food. That way, it didn't matter if someone actually needed a goat. They knew a goat was worth a certain amount. If they didn't want it, they could trade it again for something else." "So animals and grain were the first kinds of money?" asked Joe. "That's right," said Mr. Willer, "but even that turned into a problem. Many historians believe that writing developed out of the need to keep track of trading." Mrs. Gates held up a basket of small shells. "These are called cowrie shells," she said. "The Chinese began using cowries as money around 1200 BC. Later, other cultures used cowries as well, including India, Thailand, and Africa. In fact, in the country of Nigeria, cowries were used as late as 1935. That's less than 100 years ago. The cowrie shell has been used longer and across a larger area than any other kind of currency. All sorts of things have been used as money in different cultures and at different periods in history," Mr. Willer said. "Feathers, salt, and beads are just a few examples. Some people even used hunks of metal. What form of money do you think that led to?" Mr. Willer asked. "Coins!" Scott yelled. "That's right," said Mr. Willer. "On the Yap Island in the Pacific Ocean, native people still use stone discs as money. The larger discs are up to 12 feet, 4 meters across, and are too heavy to move." "The earliest coins were made in Lydia, which is now Turkey," Mrs. Gates said. "They were stamped to show how much they weighed. People could tell what they were worth just by looking at them." She brought out a tray of old coins. The practice of using coins spread to Greece, Italy, and throughout Europe. The coins were stamped with images of gods, kings, animals, or special designs. In a way, the coins became art too. "Ancient coins are very valuable," Mr. Willer added. "These are copies. If you want to see the real thing, a lot of museums have great collections." The first coins were made of electrum, a mixture of gold and silver that occurs in nature. "Coins made it easier to manage money," said Mrs. Gates. "But they could still be a burden. Imagine if your parents had to drag a bag of quarters to the grocery store." Along came paper money, said Mr. Willer. The first paper money was developed in China in the early 10th century. At that time, the coins in China were made of heavy iron. People got tired of carrying them around. So, they left the coins with merchants for handwritten receipts. The receipts said how much money was there. Then, the government took over, printing receipts with fixed values. In Europe, added Mrs. Gates, paper money wasn't widely used until the 1700s. In 1661, Sweden issued the first official banknotes in Europe. Then came France in 1720, England in 1797, and Germany in 1806. Money has gone through many changes, said Mr. Willer, from cows to coins to cash. Money is even changing right now. More and more, people are using money on computer networks. Their paychecks might be deposited directly into their bank accounts. They can pay many of their bills by transferring money electronically. In fact, in the future, people might not need actual money at all. But while the form of money changes, its meaning stays the same, said Mrs. Gates. Whether it's a basket of grain, a credit card, or a computer, money will always be a symbol of the things people need and want. Within the last 10 years, in terms of dollar value, more than 90% of all money transactions were made electronically. After the program, Scott and the other kids gathered around the table. Scott knew these ancient coins weren't real, but it was still kind of neat to imagine.